In the past week, we've seen the minting of some fresh bag holders. Companies such as Canopy Growth have absolutely exploded from 3 something Canadian dollars to a peak of 14.67 Canadian dollars on Wednesday, on April the 3rd. And this is a result of partial legalization of cannabis in Germany, as well as this being on the agenda in Florida as well. And the cannabis companies, the producers here, are happy to sell you more shares. They've been doing that for quite some time. If we take a look at macro trends, we can see that the year-over-year quarterly growth on outstanding shares has been quite steep, and once again it's picking up. I have some more bad news in this area, but first let's take a quick look just on the numbers of shares outstanding. This is in millions of shares. So 83 million shares for the full year here of 2023 when it came to a close. And then we see that if we compare this to, for example, 2017, there was only 15 million shares outstanding. So that's quite the dilution. That's more than 400% dilution of ownership in companies such as Canopy Growth in this case. And I've seen the same trend in other companies, for example, Afria, that is called Tilray now, had the same problem with dilution. Tilray has the same problem with dilution, and there's a big issue here. But the company indeed needs to print more shares, and it's on the agenda once again, with proxy advisor here, Glass Lewis, recommending shareholders to vote for the creation of more shares. They're wanting to print more shares because, quite frankly, they need to. We just need to take a look at the financials for this company and it will be a lot clearer. We can see here for every quarter they're losing a lot of money. Earnings per share here after dilution minus 14 Canadian dollars, and operating income here minus 139 million Canadian. That's quite a lot for a 1 billion something company. And we can see that this holds true for other quarters as well. You've seen me done videos on cannabis companies in the past. It's like airlines to Warren Buffett, you can't stay away. I can't stay away from looking at these companies. Someday I think it's gonna change, but that's not today, and I don't see it on the horizon either here. Operating income minus 43 million. And then for September here as well, we see earnings per share a negative. And then once again, December, we see operating income negative, although not as much. There's a huge profitability problem. And if we look at, for example, the German legalization, I talked about it when it was on the agenda a long time ago. The process has been slow. And now this partial legalization basically allows for social cannabis clubs in Germany where they can sell 50 grams to each members for a month, and that's the maximum legal limit. What this does in practice, in my opinion, is basically makes law enforcement a lot harder for the police in Germany, as if you catch a person carrying some amount of grams of this substance, well, they can just say, I got it from a social club and not from the black market. So in my opinion, the black market will increase. If you've ever been to, for example, Berlin, you know that if you just take a walk through a park, there will be like a dealer every 200 meters or something like that. It's insane, in my opinion, but you will just see this massive black market, and I don't think that the younger demographic will go into the legal sector and buy from corporations. Maybe the older generation will be more inclined to do that. That's what's happened in Canada, that's legalized quite further back in time. So we see that trend. It's being researched by German universities right now. They have papers on it. For example, from Goethe University, they have some good stuff in this area. But what will we see here? I don't think that growers like Canopy or, for example, Tilray will be able to corner this market in a meaningful way. Instead, in the legalization. For example, each German would be allowed to grow 3 plants at home. And in a survey, 10% of Germans were open to this. So I think that we will see a lot of homegrown instead, and little shops, these social clubs popping up, doing the growing locally. I can do a profile, for example, on the community for this type of substance. In my opinion, it's more hippie sort of vibe. And I think that they will appreciate the homegrown more, buying from a local producer, some close friend. And I think that we will see that type of development in the market rather than a publicly listed company being able to capture revenue in a meaningful way. I mean, let's be honest here. They're not even allowed to advertise on, for example, television or YouTube. How can they create a strong brand? How can they create the next Marlboro, for example, but in the cannabis sector, when they can't even run ads? They're not going to be able to create awareness, demand, and I think that it will be a very difficult process as a sales rep to try to get into this market, try to convince local stores to carry your product on the shelf when they can just grow it themselves super easily, get huge margin. There's already a ton of oversupply in this market, and we see this with profitability. We see that there's a massive squeeze on it. It's so easy to grow that Germans can do it themselves at home in pots and plants basically. And I think that this company, this jump that we see in stock price now, to tie it back to the beginning of the video, will just mint new bag holders. We will see a jump on the news, and then as the numbers continue to be negative, remember, in the long term, the stock market is a weighing machine and not a voting machine, and I think that we will see stock price come down after that. Just take a look at the long-term graph for this company. Every time there's big hype regarding legalization, we've seen massive jumps, and then now we see a big jump again here, although it's small compared to the scale we saw for when legalization was introduced in Canada. And it will just continue to go down unless they're able to turn around and get that profitability and being able to stop diluting, stop printing more shares and just diluting that ownership. By the time this industry actually becomes profitable, if it ever does, well, then that stake that these shareholders took today will be diluted into oblivion, and it will not matter that they're profitable again, because those huge losses that they take in the now will have stacked up. That's my opinion on the current legalization here and the current jump in cannabis stocks as a result of it. But I could be wrong. I always hope that you guys make a ton of money, whatever investments you decide to make. Take care now. Bye bye.